I did not say a word. I picked up my glass of sweet tea, took one slow sip, set it back down on the white linen tablecloth, and smiled. Not because I was happy, because I had learned over 63 years of living that the most dangerous thing a woman can do is let you see her think. That was the moment I knew my son-in-law's mother was not the polished, gracious woman she had spent 18 months pretending to be. And I knew something else too, something she could not possibly have known about me yet. But I am getting ahead of myself. Let me go back to the beginning, because this story does not start at that Christmas dinner table. It starts the way most important things in life start, quietly, in a kitchen with a cup of coffee and a feeling you cannot name but cannot shake. My daughter's name is Ingrid. She is 36 years old, and she has her father's eyes, dark brown, steady, the kind of eyes that have always looked at the world straight on. Her father passed when she was 17, and watching her grow from that grieving girl into the woman she became is the achievement I am most proud of in this life. She finished college in 3 years. She earned her CPA license at 24. She ran a half marathon the autumn she turned 30 and called me from the finish line crying and laughing at the same time. That is Ingrid. Capable, warm, funny. She does not ask for much from anyone. So when she called me on a Tuesday afternoon in March and said, "Mom, I think I met someone," I felt two things simultaneously. The first was joy. Pure, uncomplicated joy. The second was something older, something that lives in the chest of every mother who has ever loved a child fiercely. A quiet, involuntary bracing. His name was Fletcher. Fletcher Odom. He was 41, an architectural consultant. Broad-shouldered and soft-spoken in the way that certain men learn to be soft-spoken because they have discovered it is more effective than raising their voice. He had a good handshake. He knew what wine to order. He laughed at the right moments and asked thoughtful follow-up questions and looked at Ingrid when she spoke the way a man is supposed to look at a woman. Attentive, admiring, proud. I liked him. I want to be honest about that, because it matters. I am not the kind of mother who views every man who loves her daughter with suspicion. I liked Fletcher. I thought he was good for her. I told my sister on the phone, "I think this one might be it," and I meant it. They got engaged 14 months after they met. Spring wedding, small ceremony in a botanical garden outside the city. Ingrid wore her grandmother's pearl earrings and looked so beautiful I had to press my knuckle against my lips to keep from making noise during the vows. I moved my schedule around that entire week. I am a federal magistrate. I have been on the bench for 19 years. I have sat in rooms where people lied to my face with extraordinary confidence, and I have learned to read the space between what a person says and what their body does when they say it. But at that wedding, I was not a magistrate. I was a mother, and I was happy, and I let myself be fully, completely happy without looking for anything underneath it. That was in April. By October, something had changed. I cannot point to a single moment. It was not one thing. It was the accumulation of small things, the kind of things you almost dismiss because each one on its own sounds like nothing, the kind of things a person can gaslight you about if you try to bring them up. The first time I noticed, Ingrid and I had plans to get lunch. Just the two of us, a Saturday thing we had done for years, a diner we both loved, the same corner booth, the same server who knew to bring my coffee, with 2 sugars before I asked. Ingrid called 40 minutes after she was supposed to pick me up. Her voice was careful in a way it had not used to be. "Mom, I'm so sorry. Fletcher made plans for us today. I forgot to put it in the calendar." "That's all right, sweetheart. We can reschedule. He says we should do it next month. He just feels like I haven't been as present at home lately." I held the phone and said, "Of course, next month is fine." What I did not say was, "You drove 20 minutes to pick me up every other Saturday for 11 years and never once forgot to put it in the calendar." I did not say it because I did not want to make her choose. Not yet. The second time I noticed, she came to my house for Thanksgiving. She arrived without the pecan pie she had promised to bring, and she spent the first hour checking her phone. When I asked if everything was all right, she said Fletcher did not come because he was not feeling well and that she could not stay past 4 because she needed to get home to him. My sister, who was visiting from Atlanta, pulled me into the kitchen while Ingrid was in the bathroom and said, "Is she okay?" I said, "I don't know yet." The third time, I noticed she had stopped talking about her work. Ingrid loved her work. She would call me just to share something she found interesting in a client's tax structure. That November, I realized I could not remember the last time she had mentioned anything about her job at all. When I brought it up, she gave me a thin smile and said, "Fletcher thinks I talk about work too much. He says it makes it hard to be present with him in the evenings." I set down my fork. I breathed in through my nose and out through my mouth, the way I do when someone says something in my courtroom that requires me to think very carefully before I respond. "Does he?" I said. "He's right, honestly. I used to talk about it constantly. It must have been exhausting for people around me." That sentence, that one sentence, that was the moment something in me stopped being uncertain. Ingrid had never in her life thought that her enthusiasm was a burden. She had never apologized for being interesting. Whatever she was saying now, she had not arrived at it on her own. I started paying closer attention after that, not in an intrusive way. I did not call every day, did not drop by unannounced, did not push. I have learned over the years that when a person is being slowly separated from the people who love them, the worst thing you can do is give the person doing the separating a reason to paint you as the problem. So I was careful. I was patient. I watched. Fletcher's mother entered the picture fully around that time. Her name is Lorene, not the Lorene in the file, a different woman entirely, though she would not seem out of place in a list of names you would give to a woman who grew gardenias and served iced tea and said things like, "Bless your heart," while meaning the opposite. She invited Ingrid and me to lunch in December, a private club downtown, white tablecloths and the kind of quiet that costs money. She was perfectly pleasant. She asked about my work in the vague, politely disinterested way people ask about things they find important, to appear curious about. She told me 3 times how much Fletcher adored Ingrid. She said, "We just want her to be happy. That's all we've ever wanted for him." I smiled and said, "That's all I've ever wanted for her too." But I watched her watch Ingrid. And I noticed that every time Ingrid started a sentence, Lorene would redirect the conversation to Fletcher, to his childhood, his career, his vision for their future together. Ingrid slowly stopped starting sentences. I drove home from that lunch and sat in my car in the garage for a few minutes before going inside. I have a habit of doing that, sitting in silence before I re-enter my own space, letting whatever I carried in settle before I bring it through the door. That afternoon, what I carried in was something heavy and very familiar. I had seen this dynamic before, not in my personal life, in my professional one. I had seen it in testimony, in depositions, in the careful, practiced way certain people answer questions about their partners, the minimizing, the explaining away, the reflexive defense of someone who has made them believe that love requires that level of loyalty. I had seen it and I had presided over the outcomes. I was not going to preside over my daughter's outcome from a bench. Christmas was at Fletcher's family home, a large house in a suburb I will not name, the kind of house with a dedicated room for wrapping presents and a catering company for the holidays. Lauren had organized everything, and she had done it beautifully. The garlands, the music, the courses, the seating arrangement that, I noticed, placed me at the far end of the table from Ingrid. I sat where I was put. I unfolded my napkin. I smiled at the relatives I did not know. Fletcher made a toast. He was good at toasts. He thanked everyone for being there, thanked his mother for the beautiful home, thanked Ingrid for being his partner in building a life together. The table applauded. Ingrid looked at her lap for just a moment, the smallest thing, barely a flicker, before she smiled and raised her glass. I raised mine. Dinner was served. The conversation moved around the table the way conversation does at large family gatherings, loud at certain ends, muffled at others. I was listening without appearing to listen, which is something you learn to do when your job is to evaluate credibility. It was during the second course that it happened. Ingrid said something about a client she had helped that year. Nothing detailed, just a passing mention. The kind of thing that in any other room would have been a small, pleasant conversational contribution. Before she could finish the sentence, Fletcher said, without looking up from his plate, "You know, you always make those stories more complicated than they are. It can be hard to follow." The table did not go silent. That was the disturbing part. Two of his relatives kept talking. His cousin laughed at something on the other side of the table. Only Ingrid's fork stopped moving. Only for a second. Then she nodded slightly and said, "You're right. Sorry." And she did not finish the sentence. Lorene, seated to Fletcher's left, picked up her wine glass and took a small sip and said nothing. But the corners of her mouth moved. Not quite a smile. Something more private than that. I did not say a word. I picked up my glass of sweet tea, took one slow sip, set it back down on the white linen tablecloth and smiled. Because I was counting. I had been counting for weeks. Counting the number of times Ingrid finished her own sentences in Fletcher's presence versus the number of times she let them trail off. Counting the occasions she checked his face before she agreed or disagreed with something. Counting the things she had stopped doing, calling me spontaneously, talking about her work, making plans without consulting him first. I had been building a picture the same way I build a picture in any proceeding methodically, without emotion, one data point at a time. That night after dinner, I excused myself to the restroom. I walked down the long hallway with the framed family photographs and the sound of the party behind me, and I stepped into the bathroom and I called my clerk. Not because I needed her to do anything that evening. I called because I needed to say the name out loud to someone I trusted, to make it real, to make it a thing I had decided, and not just a thing I was considering. "Get me everything on Fletcher Odom," I said. "Professional history, financial, anything public record. And run his mother's name, too. Lorene Odom, maiden name unknown. My clerk has worked with me for 11 years. She did not ask why. She said, "I'll have it Monday." I washed my hands. I looked at myself in the mirror. I went back to that table and I ate the rest of my dinner and I talked to Fletcher's aunt about her garden. And I helped Lorene carry the dessert plates into the kitchen. And when she thanked me for being so gracious, I said, "Of course. This has been a beautiful evening." I meant every word in a way she did not understand. Monday came. My clerk set the file on my desk at 7:15 in the morning. I closed my office door and I read it over my coffee. Fletcher Odom had been engaged once before. The engagement ended. The woman he had been engaged to had filed for a protective order 18 months after they started living together. The order was granted. He had contested it, and the contest had been unsuccessful. There was nothing criminal on his record. The protective order had expired. Legally, he was a man who had done nothing wrong. That is how these things so often work. The harm is real, and the record is clean, because the harm happens in the space between what can be proven and what is simply lived. His mother had been married twice. Both marriages had ended in divorce. The second husband had a civil judgment against him that mentioned Loren's name in documents that suggested she had been a participant in a financial arrangement that was later disputed. Nothing that rose to the level of prosecution. Nothing that most people would ever know to look for. I sat with all of that for a long time. Then I picked up my phone and I called Ingrid. She did not answer, which was new. 6 months ago, she always answered when I called. I left a voicemail. I said I had enjoyed Christmas and that I would love to take her to lunch, just the two of us, whenever she was free. I said I had something I wanted to share with her. She called back that evening. Her voice, as it always was now, was careful. Fletcher thought maybe we could all have lunch together, the three of us. I said I would love that, but this time I was hoping it could just be us. I have something personal I want to talk through with you. A pause. Then, what kind of something? Nothing alarming, I said. I just miss you. And there are some things a mother needs to say to her daughter without an audience. She came. 3 days later, same diner, same corner booth. She was thinner than she had been at the wedding. She held her coffee cup with both hands even though the restaurant was warm. I told her I loved her first. That was important. I told her I was not there to tell her what to do or to make her feel foolish. I told her that what I was about to share came only from love and from 38 years of watching people try to survive situations that other people had put them in. Then I told her what I had found. She did not cry right away. She went very still, the way she used to go, still as a child when she was trying to process something too large for the moment. She looked at her coffee cup. She looked at the table. She said, "He told me his ex-fiancée was unstable." "I know," I said. "That is what they always say." I don't know that I believe it's the same situation. You don't have to believe anything today, I said. I just need you to have the information. What you do with it is yours, she cried then. Not loud, not dramatic. She pressed her fingers against her eyes and she cried the way women cry when they are angry at themselves for not having seen something sooner, which is a particular kind of grief that I recognized because I had seen it in my courtroom and I had felt it once in my own life before I learned to trust the feeling in my chest that said something is wrong. "I've been so stupid," she whispered. "You have been in love," I said. "Those are not the same thing." We sat there for 2 hours. I did not rush her. I did not tell her what to do. I told her what I had observed. The sentences, the lunches, the Thanksgiving phone checking, the way her voice had changed in 10 months, the way she had stopped being Ingrid in small increments that individually meant nothing and collectively meant everything. She listened. She pushed back on some of it. That was healthy, and I let her. By the end, she was quieter, more inward, the way she gets when she is thinking in a way that is real instead of reactive. She did not leave Fletcher that day. I did not expect her to. These things do not happen in one afternoon. But she called me the next morning, and the morning after that, she started coming to the diner again. She mentioned a client she was working with, just briefly, and when I said, "That sounds interesting, tell me more," she talked about it for 20 minutes, and her face looked like her face again. In February, she told Fletcher she thought they needed couples counseling. He said she was overreacting to normal relationship adjustments. She said she was going to go alone then because she had some things she wanted to work through. He did not like that. The conversation that followed was the first time she heard her own voice clearly. She told me later, because she was listening for what I had described, and she heard it, and she could not unhear it. She moved out in March. She called me from her new apartment, a bright place, top floor, big windows that faced east, and she said, "Mom, I forgot how much I like mornings." I had to press my knuckle against my lips again. Fletcher called me once, 2 weeks after Ingrid left. He was polite, controlled, the soft-spoken version of himself that had impressed me the first time we met. He said he was concerned about the things that might have been said, that he hoped we could have an open conversation about Ingrid's well-being. I said, "I appreciate you reaching out." I said, "I have always supported whatever makes my daughter healthy and happy." I said, "I hope you take care of yourself, Fletcher." And then, because I am who I am, and because I had known for 3 months what I knew, I said, "One more thing. I understand you may be pursuing a commercial development permit for a project in the district. I want you to know that my professional responsibilities and my personal life are entirely separate, and I would never allow one to influence the other." A pause. "I just think it's important that you know I'm aware of it." He was quiet for a moment. "Of course," he said. "Of course," I agreed. "I do not know what happened with the permit. I did not look into it. That was not the point, and I would not use my position that way, not ever." The point was that he needed to understand what he was dealing with, and now he did. Ingrid is doing well. She goes to therapy on Tuesday afternoons and to the diner with me on Saturday mornings, and she is talking about taking a trip to Portugal in the spring, which is something she mentioned wanting to do before she met Fletcher and then stopped mentioning entirely. I think about that a lot. How many things a person quietly stops wanting when someone makes them feel that what they want is too much. I am not telling this story because I want credit. I am telling it because I have sat in enough rooms to know that what happened to my daughter happens every day in forms that are hard to name and harder to prove, to women who are smart and capable and loving and who do not see it until they are deep enough inside it that getting out requires something enormous from them. If you are a mother or a sister or a friend and something feels wrong, trust it. You do not need to have evidence before you pay attention. Pay attention first. The evidence, if there is any, will come. And if you are the daughter, if something in this story felt familiar in a way you wish it hadn't, I want you to hear what I told Ingrid across that diner table. You are not stupid. You have been in love. Those are not the same thing. And there is still time.